Good evening. Everybody's going to turn off their cell phones. I don't want to hear any cell phones. There were no cell phones in Dr. King's life. I want to welcome you. I'm Vita Palladino, the director of the Howard Gottlieb Archival Research Center and curator of the Martin Luther King Jr. Archive. I first want to thank certain people. Christopher Robinson, who was going to sign tonight for our students. Also, he does this very well. You'll really be impressed. I want to thank the staff of the Howard Gottlieb Archival Research Center, who is very devoted and very caring. Not here tonight is the man who's been here longer than I have, over 35 years, who mainly dealt with the King Archive over all these decades. I also want to thank the staff working on the Mellon Grant under the tutelage of Ted Murphy, Tawana Worley, and Matthew Brown. I want to thank the staff of the Poetry Society of America, Alice Quinn, Rob Casper, who helped put this group together as well. I want to thank the Thurman Center and Dean Elmore, who have helped me get this space, for example, and encouraged me to go on with this program. I've been here 31 of the 44 years the archive has been here at Boston University. I'm happy to report that we also have had the Nikki Giovanni collection for 37 years. They've been Voltmates a long time. And we recently acquired the archives of Sonia Sanchez. And our wonderful poet, who unfortunately he teaches at Simmons, not here, Arthur Michael Weaver. Extraordinary people. I have often been asked why Dr. King's papers are at Boston University. The simple answer is he's an alumnus of Boston University, where he received his PhD in 1955. This compelling man, this deeply spiritual man, who by 11 years old was already bothered by social injustice, entered Morehouse College at age 15 and left there with a dream to make a difference in the world. He became a Morehouse man. When Dr. King came to Boston and Boston University, he left his friends, family, and his father, who merely envisioned his son taking his place at the pulpit of the Ebenezer Church in Atlanta. That is basically what his family envisioned for him. However, Dr. King carried that dream with him when he arrived at Boston University in Boston. Boston University was founded by 3 abolitionists and embraced, he did, the great mentors here: Howard Thurman, Harold DeWolf, Edgar Brightman, Alan Knight Chalmers, among others. This compelling graduate student inspired these mentors as much as they inspired him. At the same time, and in this landscape in Boston, the Kennedy brothers were beginning their careers. Like our other alumni who came before him, Senator Edward Brooke and Barbara Jordan, Dr. King learned here at Boston University, what integration felt like, how it worked. He was empowered by this experience after coming from a historically black college. He left Boston University in 1955 with his dream of making a difference in the world, now to help make men and women free. 5 years later, in 1960, Boston University was still committed to helping Dr. King realize his dream. I hope you don't mind me quoting from letters I recently discovered in another collection in Harold DeWolf's collection. I think they're very historic and they're very touching. In May 10th, 1960, He writes a one-page letter. Words are inadequate for me to say how happy I am to know that Boston University has established a committee to collect from faculty members a special fund to be known as the Boston University Civil Rights Scholarship Fund. This is certainly a marvelous step, and I am sure that it will serve to give new hope and courage to those who are struggling to make justice and democracy a reality in our nation. I think it is safe to say that Boston University has gone beyond any other institution at this point. Naturally, this makes me feel very proud to be an alumnus of an institution with such concern and dedication. As soon as the fund gets underway, I would appreciate hearing more from you concerning it. I am sure that I can find some students to recommend out of the 30-odd who have been expelled from colleges in the South. Now, on June 16th, he's been very busy, and he writes this. I will only read you part of this letter. Please accept my apologies for just getting to the point of answering your letter of May 10th. As you probably know, I was tied up in court most of the month of May in the case brought against me by the state of Alabama. This inevitably threw me a great deal behind in my correspondence. I am happy to report that an all-white jury rendered a verdict of not guilty in this case. I must say that this was a real surprise. We had no idea that an all-white jury of Montgomery, Alabama, would ever think of acquitting Martin Luther King. Even though we knew that the state had no case and that all of their charges were false, we felt that it would have been necessary to go to the United States Supreme Court in order to finally receive justice. So this was a most significant decision. I hope that it represents a dawn of a new hope. I am certainly happy to know of the Boston University Civil Rights Scholarship Fund. As I said to you in my last letter, the setting of this fund is unprecedented. I know that it will serve a great purpose. I will be very happy to pass the word along to college students and their advisors throughout the South that any Negro or white student who has been expelled from college because of their participation in the nonviolent protest against discrimination is invited to apply for assistance in carrying on his studies at Boston University. I have already spoken to the expelled students of Alabama State College concerning this scholarship fund, and I will get the word to the other expelled students that I know throughout the South. Clearly, my charge as Dr. King's curator is to ensure that his ideas, his words, and his philosophies are accessible and make available to our students to aid them in making a difference in the world. I am proud to boast that 83 different student groups on this campus have united for the first time to mark this 40th anniversary of the assassination of this great man by presenting the first ever MLK Jr. Peace Concert on April 26th. I am so proud of them, how they have worked their unity and their creative ideas and their enthusiasm. You can buy tickets at that back table there. I want to now acknowledge our Martin Luther King Scholars, run by Catherine Kennedy, who was also the director of the Howard Thurman Center. Will you children please stand and turn around and face the audience? They are on a 4-year full scholarship. They are amazing, they're inspiring, and they just juice me up. Our younger generation needs to take charge of bettering our world. Forget the blame of how it got this way. Instead, dream of what you want to see change. Know your history so you understand how we have evolved. Don't look for apologies from your elders on what we have done wrong. Take it as your personal charge to correct it. Understand that is your responsibility. You can facilitate change. You can make a difference in the world as long as you believe that you can make a difference. Dr. King left Boston University believing he could make a difference. His early childhood dream became his mission he committed his life to. You all know that our beloved Dr. Martin Luther King made us all change. He lives today through our memories, through our love and admiration for him, and by the opportunity his work and sacrifice affords us today. On this stage, you have 3 generations who will attest to the fact that Dr. King inhabits our lives through the arts. These artists move us by their words and their songs. They are our translators. They help take away our rage. They identify and share our fears and loss. They heal our wounds and ignite and nourish our love. They enrich our lives. We are very grateful and honored to have them here on this 40th anniversary program of the assassination of our beloved Martin Luther King, Jr. Callie Crossley is a celebrated broadcast professional and lecturer on race, gender, and media. Who else to get to be for a moderator of such a distinguished panel? After graduating from Wellesley and a stint in Memphis as a news reporter, Ms. Crossley moved to a television station in Indianapolis and then Boston, where she has been both a television and film producer. Ms. Crossley has worked as a producer on the 10 o'clock news on GBH, ABC's 2020. She's also a regular commentator on WGBH's Beat the Press program, where she provides insightful observations on current events. Her awards include an Edward R. Murrow Award, the Alfred I. DuPont Columbia Award, and an Emmy Award for her work on the acclaimed documentary Eyes on the Prize. She is currently the program manager of the Neiman Foundation of Journalism at Harvard University. Ladies and gentlemen, I turn over this program to Callie Crossley.
We have the great honor of beginning the program with the tone set beautifully by BU's own Professor Simon Estes. Professor Estes will be singing 2 hymns, Go Down Moses and A City Called Heaven. He is accompanied by Paul Court, who is a master's student of music at BU.
Israel was in land, let my people go. They could not stand, let my people go. Go down Moses, way down in Egypt's land, tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. Thus saith the Lord, old Moses said, let my people go. If not, I'll smite we'll see if this one's better, okay? I am a poor pilgrim of sorrow. I'm tossed in this wide world alone. No hope have I for tomorrow. I've started to make heaven my home. Sometimes I am tossed and driven, Lord. Sometimes I dare to roam. I've heard of a city called heaven. I've started to make heaven my home. My mother has reached that pure glory. My father's now resting in love. My brother and sister won't own me because I am trying to get in. Sometimes I am tossed and driven, Lord. Sometimes I don't know where to roam. I've heard of a city called heaven. I've started to make heaven home.
Well, I don't think it's hyperbole to say that we are in the presence of greatness here this evening. We are truly gifted to have some cultural pathmakers on this panel to honor and lift up the sacrifice of Dr. Martin Luther King on this very somber but actually also celebratory anniversary. So let me begin with the man whom you just heard sing. I'm going to give very brief introductions because the list of accomplishments for all of our guests goes on and on. Simon Estes is an internationally acclaimed bass baritone who has sung in opera, concert, and recital performances. Estes has performed in the world's major opera houses and for U.S. presidents and international leaders such as Nelson Mandela, Boris Yeltsin, Yitzhak Rabin, and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Born in Centerville, Iowa, he attended the University of Iowa until he was accepted into the famed Juilliard School of Music in 1963. He made his operatic debut just 2 years later in Berlin in a performance of Aida. He has performed more than 100 lead operatic roles, several of them first as an African-American male singer. Estes teaches master classes at the Juilliard School of Music, Iowa State University, and Boston University College of Fine Arts. In addition to his music career, he is also a philanthropist. He has established 4 foundations, including the Simon Estes Educational Foundation, which has awarded more than $1 million in college scholarships, and the Simon Estes International Foundation for Children, which provides support for children's health and educational needs. His home state of Iowa acknowledged his exceptional talents by naming the Riverfront Amphitheater in Des Moines, Iowa, in his honor. Please welcome Simon Estes. You're welcome. Chuck D married poetry, music, and politics, taking rap from party music to political commentary. Chuck D was a graphic design student at Adelphi University, DJing at the local radio station, when he met the men who would become his partners in forming Public Enemy. As frontman for the iconic group Public Enemy, Chuck D helped redefine the rap genre both lyrically and musically. Chuck D rhymed about social problems and Black consciousness, while the accompanying music featured sound samples and what's been described as relentless beats and deep funk. Public Enemy's first album, Yo, the Bum Rush, on Def Jam Records, got critical attention but not widespread notice. However, the group's second album, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, established the group as an influential voice in hip-hop. Chuck D and Public Enemy became household names with the debut of Spike Lee's 1989 movie, Do the Right Thing, which opened with the song Fight the Power. In 1996, Chuck D left Def Jam to set up his own record label, under which he released the autobiography of Mr. Chuck, and later produced the soundtrack to Spike Lee's movie, He's Got Game. Most recently, Chuck D co-hosted the program Unfiltered on Air America Radio and has been a national spokesperson for Rock the Vote. In 2004, Rolling Stone named Chuck D and Public Enemy one of the 50 most important performers in rock and roll history. Chuck D. Many Americans met Nikki Giovanni for the first time in the aftermath of last year's tragic shootings at Virginia Tech. Giovanni closed the memorial service with words from her poem, whose last lines are, "We will prevail, we are Virginia Tech." Giovanni's first book of poetry, Black Feeling, Black Talk, was published in 1968, 40 years ago, and featured what some have described as radical poems. But for a number of fans in this room, a mention of Giovanni brings to mind that staple of speech competitions and oratorical contests, the poem Ego Tripping. You remember what it says. You remember what it says, I am so perfect, so defined, so ethereal, so surreal, I cannot be comprehended except by my permission. Giovanni is a university distinguished professor at Virginia Tech and the author of some 30 books, poetry, prose, children's books, and now spoken word. This Ohio native is in the Ohio Women's Hall of Fame, has a Grammy nomination, as well as more than 25 honorary degrees. She is also my soror. Giovanni has written that everything will change. The only question is growing up or decaying. I think you will agree that poses no danger for the ever-vibrant Nikki Giovanni. Derek Walcott was born in St. Lucia, the West Indies, where he began his writing career. He moved to Trinidad and founded the Trinidad Theater Workshop, which presented his plays and those of other Caribbean playwrights. He founded the Boston Playwrights Theater shortly after beginning his tenure as a Boston University faculty member. His plays have been produced by the New York Shakespeare Festival, Los Angeles' Mark Taper Forum, and the Negro Ensemble Company. He is perhaps best known for his play Dream on Monkey Mountain, which won an Obie Award for the most distinguished foreign play. Acknowledged to be one of the greatest living writers, Walcott's work also includes poetry. He has received numerous fellowships and awards, most notably the MacArthur Genius Award in 1981. A little more than 10 years after that honor, Derek Walcott became the first Black writer to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. Please welcome BU's own. Sonia Sanchez's name is inextricably linked to the Black arts movement of the 60s. She was born in Birmingham, Alabama, and grew up in Harlem. She graduated from Hunter College and studied at Yale University. She was involved in the civil rights movement and wrote many poems and plays about African American struggle for equality. It was during her work with CORE that she met Malcolm X. Influenced by her experiences in the movement, Sanchez created and taught the first course on Black women in literature in the United States. She has authored plays, children's books, and anthologies, as more than a dozen books of poetry. Sanchez's poetry is distinguished by her fiery and sharp-edged commentary, and by her skill at combining a variety of poetry styles and musical expression. She wrote a poem for the renowned a cappella group Sweet Honey in the Rock, which says in part, "I say, come wrap your feet around justice. I say, come wrap your tongue around truth." Sanchez was also part of a series I know something about, Eyes on the Prize. Sanchez taught at Temple University until her retirement 9 years ago. She won the Penn Writing Award in 1967, and in 1985, the American Book Award for her collection of poems called Homegirls and Hand Grenades. She is a popular lecturer, having spoken at more than 500 colleges and read her work around the world. She told a young interviewer earlier this year that her work on behalf of the struggle was a lifetime commitment. She told him, when you stay on the battlefield of life, you stay on it until you take your last breath. Sonia Sanchez. I'm moving over one to Sam Cornish. Our other panelists will be here later. Sam Cornish is now the face of poetry in Massachusetts. A former professor of Emerson College, Cornish was recently named Poet Laureate for Boston, a position which will allow him to raise the visibility of poetry through poetry workshops across the city and other events. Cornish is the former literature director of the Massachusetts Council on the Arts and Humanities. He has authored 13 books, poetry, his memoir, 1935, children's books, and several collections of poetry which he edited. In naming him to the post of Poet Laureate, selection committee members said they were impressed by Cornish's commitment to education and cited his ability to make poetry so accessible. One of his poems, Folks Like Me, written many years ago, seems made for this moment in time. It reads in part, "The president said the economy is doing fine. Guess it's just taking its time getting down to folks like me." Please welcome Boston's Poet Laureate, Sam Cornish. Since this is the 40th anniversary of Dr. King's death, I thought it appropriate to start with something he said. And Dr. King said, "A riot is the language of the unheard." And the people on this panel have worked very hard to make sure that they gave voice to the voiceless. So my question to any of you, to begin with, Sonia Sanchez, is what is the legacy of Dr. King's work in your life personally, and certainly in your work?
Okay, my name is Anyone now. You know, after a man by the name of Malcolm died in 1963, we noted that as AM after Malcolm, and moved accordingly with a certain amount of aggression. And then in 1968, when I was in a place called San Francisco, I was going on the campus to teach my class, and some students came running towards me and said Brother Martin had been killed, assassinated, and I canceled the classes. And I realized that AM also meant after Martin. And I understood that on many levels, my dear brothers and my dear sisters. I understood that what he had said in 1967 in a place called Riverside Church, when he began to demand that people put a face on that war in Vietnam, as he talked and as he moved in a place called America, we understood that although we had called Brother Malcolm our father and Brother Martin our distant father, he had become indeed our father, our very close father. And we began very much to remember him and to understand that he had began to make us move on a different level. And that was simply not just by being an outsider, which we were very aggressive outsiders before, but become a part of this American force in this place called America. We began very much to integrate ourselves the way he wanted us to do in terms of demanding some of the power that resided here in this place called America. And so we began to do that. And so we began to understand that our work then would be work to change the entire world. And we became these cultural workers in this place called America, you know, demand, hey, how you doing? Brother Talib. It is so good having this cross-generational discussion, isn't it? Ain't it? Ain't they fat? And that's what we did, you know, and understanding that AM also meant after Malcolm and after Martin also, too. These two men who would constantly join in this place called America, make no mistake about it, that they continued to talk to us and make us truly understand the need to begin to become very much involved with everything. And, you know, when I got arrested this last year, you know, we went in under Martin's name. You know, we went in saying simply that this is what Martin would be doing if he were alive. Martin would be going to these centers saying, take me, don't take our children and our grandchildren. That's what we did, and we went under his name. We went walking and singing, you know, the songs that he sang. This is his legacy to us and all of us, you know, and we have not forgotten him, and we don't, you know, sequestered him on mountains, but we walk with him every day. We walk with his song, we walk with his music, we walk with the music of the two of them saying simply, you gotta resist. You gotta keep on resisting. You gotta resist, you gotta resist, you gotta resist, you gotta resist, you gotta keep on moving, you gotta keep on walking, you gotta resist. Can you say resist? Can you say resist? Can you say resist? Like you mean it, can you say resist? That's Brother Martin.
Mr. Walcott? Would you like to respond, Mr. Walcott? The legacy of Martin Luther King for you and your work and personally?
I feel as if I'm here more as a witness than a participant, because my experience in the Caribbean, through boyhood and early adulthood, is not the same experience as an American African writer. There was no urgent, visible cause for anger, fury, riot, martyrdom, suffering that we saw happen in America with the black man, and which continues, as far as we are concerned, in the Caribbean. I'm not speaking for the Caribbean, I'm just saying the horrors of racism continue. They're recent. I mean, I needn't identify with some of the shocking things that have happened on account of race. So what we know in the Caribbean of black Americans is that they suffer, that they're still enslaved, that they have to fight daily, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to be banal and rhetorical, but I'm just saying that I can't participate in the vehemence that is natural, the natural right of an American, Afro-American, or also the natural right of an Afro-American writer, and that the anger is part of the creation of American, Afro-American literature. You can't remove the anger from the craft of any American, Afro-American artist. So I'm not outside of it, and I don't judge it from the outside. I know what racism is like, but I did not get up every day like any young black American to face the man. The man did not exist, the man had gone. In fact, the man turned into people who were black, who were just continuing some of the work that the man had done. So that, while I'm not saying anything, I have my good friends are Afro-American writers, and I completely understand what they have been through. I was in LA after Watts, and I met some brilliant, vehement, young Afro-American writers. Sometimes Afro-American is too long to say, I say black. Afro-American is one of those hyphenated things that doesn't face the truth. It's a hyphenating word. Just like this stupidity of the N word. Only a hypocritical society would come up with the deceit of not saying nigger, which I said now, so where am I? The N word doesn't do anything to the condition that continues. So when you avoid the N word, you're avoiding the truth. Sorry, but if I get involved, I think I'll sound very, very different from what's going on now. When this country, almost as if it were tradition, murders its dreamers, its leaders, we outside of this country take it as an American way of life or an American way of death. When I think as an outsider of the number of good intending people who have been assassinated, when I think of Obama, that's what I fear. I think of him and I am afraid. I am afraid for him. That's not a condition that fulfills Martin Luther King's dream, because the fear continues. I thought I might have kept quiet, but I hear myself talking, and I better shut up because I might say more. All right.
Chuck D., the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King in your life and its impact on your work.
First of all, I'd like to say peace to everybody. A big holler to my good young brother Talib in the house. And, you know, being able to get the inspiration from sisters Nikki Giovanni and Sonia Sanchez, who always seemed like they was in the house, they was up in the crib as aunts, because my parents would be playing the voices of the time and even afterwards in the crib because they was accepted in the household. So, and I hated to hear this stuff on the turntable all the damn time because it meant I was in the crib doing chores. So I tried to get away from these voices along, mixed with James Brown and Stevie Wonder and H-Rap Brown, and people who actually were doing poetry as well as, singing the songs of the streets at the particular time, because the songs of the streets was also songs up in the house as well, because these voices were actually just spewing out love music, and love music was like, you know what, I got your back, no matter what. This is what's going down, I got your back. So that's why they was played. Now, I don't know, even though I know, there's a lot of people that just don't apply to be as your aunts and uncles growing up in the 90s and the millennium. So music and the voices have gone all over the place and fragmented. But I'm just telling you, as far as the legacy of Dr. King, speaking from my own selfish point of view. I was born in 1960. So that's the top of the 1960s. No 59, no 1960. And from 1960 to 1970, I was 0 to 10 years old. And the first 10 years of your life was an unbelievable foundation. And the foundation that I remember as far back as I can go were assassinations, where the president could die, anybody running for political office, you might get taken out. Vietnam War was taking place, and war bombing, you know, planes and shit, you know. And then, you know, I'm thinking this is commonplace. You 4 or 5 years old, Malcolm X, all of a sudden he's killed. And then Dr. King, I'm 7.5 years old, and this thunderous voice was up in the crib, and it was like, you know, because my father also got a thunderous voice. So I knew if I was doing something wrong and I heard a choker, I'm like, damn. So that's also, so what I got from Dr. King was something I could relate to. And then later on, it was putting the meaning with the thunderous voice. And I was like, okay, that definitely is getting across. I don't know what he's saying, but it's definitely bringing people's attention. And then at the same time, I'm going through the process of being identified as Negro, because it's on my birth certificate. And the midway through the 60s, we colored. And by the end of the 60s, around when Dr. King was getting killed, James Brown is saying, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. So I'm like, damn, every 3 years, I'm something else. But the whole thing about Dr. King that resonated with me is that, you know, there was a lot of things that go along with the character of what was coming across. And later on, I was led to believe, and also by hearing and backtracking, that the characteristics are less relevant than the character of a person. Dressing the inside is more about, that's what it should be about instead of the outside. And right now, we're in the millennium, and so many people are caught up into this outside, you know, this, you gotta have this look, you gotta look this stereotype. And my thing is just like, you know, the legacy of Dr. King is avoid trying to be a goddamn robot or something that somebody actually programs how you should be on the outside without ever knowing your inside. And what I don't like is when areas like CNN and MSNBC or any other quote-unquote what we call media outlet, would be it Lou Dobbs or whoever the hell it is, they start to tell you what a legacy means instead of you trying to figure it out what your neighborhood, your household says it is first. And I'm saying use your common sense, and that's logic, rationale, and deductive reasoning to try to get into the psyche of what it applies to you and what it applies to me. To make a long story short and a short one shorter, is that I don't like history punctifying Dr. King's legacy. It's like where people are like, well, I wasn't back there, I was born in 1989, and people are like, damn, you know, 89, what do you know about Dr. King, you know? All I know is Dr. King is like, he had a dream and there's a lot of streets named after him. And, you know, I don't like, as we go on, history is actually told based on a paycheck. And all of a sudden, the people that have the voices get less and less because people that feel uncomfortable about the voices that's out there that's saying the goddamn actual truth, all of a sudden they're politically incorrect, even like what's going on with Barack Obama right now. One thing I kind of admire, for the first time in a long time in my lifetime, I see these pastors who are stepping up to the table and now got some fire in their goddamn throat. And I'm like, whoa, I heard Lowry come out and defend Pastor Wright, like, yo. And that's one thing I know, that the rappers have always been able to, it might have been dysfunctional at times or whatever, but if they got the lookout for somebody's back, it's coming out like, no, F that. And now I'm seeing pastors and people coming out and backing people, like whether they believe a Pastor Wright is incorrect or whatever. We don't need people always to be on the same robotic stereotype to always make people feel, oh. Because when you got everybody that makes people feel, oh, then you raising generations that just like, oh, well, it don't matter, whatever. You need what Dr. King taught me is like, he could turn the other cheek, but my cousin back there, that motherfucker don't like you. And straight out, Barack, we got your back, because Day-Day in the back, he don't care and don't like you straight up. And that's what Dr. King taught me. We have to protect those that want to do right. And you know, you got to fight for what's right. But listen, don't clap for me. You got to fight for what's right, but just because you got the right, it don't prove you got the right to do wrong. All right? So that's that for me. That's what Dr. King meant to me.
Nikki Giovanni?
It's your fault, Nikki. I'm mad at 10 years old.
No.
Because of you.
Luckily, I got to be 64, and with any luck, I'll get to be 65, but I've always been fond of heroes. And the one thing that we know about any hero is that the hero is misunderstood, though right in the end. So I don't worry, for example, Chuck, about Barack Obama. They killed a black boy, they killed a white boy. Why wouldn't they? You can't worry about that. What you have to worry about is if you're not dead, you should be alive. And if you're going to be alive, there's going to be a lot of things that's going to confuse people. One, Martin was cute, so he's going to have a relationship with a woman. He's going to eat, no, I get sick of that. He's going to have fried chicken, and he's going to have greens. And then he's going to say he's been to the mountaintop. Because he's not dead, he's going to be alive. And so whatever it all means to me is that every day that I'm here, I'm going to enjoy something, I'm going to laugh at something, I'm going to try to love somebody, and then I'm going to try to do good work, and that's all it means.
Simon Estes?
He was really born in, was somebody else in here born in 1960? How does that happen?
Looking at me and saying, God damn.
Simon Estes?
Well, I was born in 1938, so I guess I... What I always admired about Martin Luther King, and I had the honor of having heard him speak while he was still yet alive in Iowa in the late 50s and early 60s, had the honor of having played the role of Martin Luther King with Coretta's Agreement in the Piccadilly Theatre in London in 1990. And I was in their humble home when we discussed this particular musical called The King. Martin was a man who reminded me so very much of Moses when he led the people out of Egypt. Martin was a modern-day Moses to lead not only people of color, but all of God's children into a land of peace. And Martin was a man of faith that he got from his father and from the church and from the Bible. And Martin taught all of us that we are all of God's children. It's like a Negro spiritual. I tell many of my students, and yes, the majority of my students are non-African American, but I tell them you too can sing a Negro spiritual. Because the Negro spiritual is a song with a message of hope, of sadness, of joy, of courage, of a message, let my people go. Moses was